Howdy of you delicious people. I'm here today to review Stanley's Lucky Man, Season 3, Episode 4. So, in this episode, we kind of have a goofy, episode. We have some, this episode is just to, kind of, go into some loose end things where really we're having this episode to be about Dan Morrison, who had eventually towards the tail end of the last episode taken Surrey and is now working for Blake. And so now we're still going into the Dan episode of things. I'm like, man, and also it feels like we're kind of getting a little flimsy with the whole bracelet of things, where, the bracelet was lucky, now, the bracelet is starting to run out of luck, then the bracelet might have bad luck. Whatever the story needs, right? That's really what we're going with this episode. And so the scrambling now is to try to figure out, the bracelet and how to be able to help Harry or renew the bracelet's luck, or to probably eventually just tell Harry, yeah, you're probably just gonna things are not gonna work out for you. Is what I'm assuming is gonna be, towards the real tail end of this show. Is that eventually Harry's probably, things are just not going to work out. But yeah, so we get back into also reincorporating Madame Chung twice in one episode for whatever the heck reason. That they need to just keep adding this person into the show. I have no offense about this woman. If anything, she kind of brings that kind of, Ancient One kind of thing to this show, where this person is, trickling out this little bit of knowledge because she knows it and they don't, kind of thing. And so, I guess that could be fascinating to keep going to the same well of this person. But I also just honestly felt like this episode was just a filler episode, in all honesty. I'm like, how could you be doing a filler episode with so much to still go on? Really, this episode is also to be tying a lot with Grey, and how, we have a lot of people being very suspicious of Grey, to the point of them basically saying, yeah, she's bent, she's turned, and we cannot trust her. So, Surrey has this one really awesome moment towards the end of this episode, but with this episode, there is so much going on. God, there is just so, they packed the crap out of this episode, because, we have to find out what happens to Eve, or what had happened to Eve, if, Eve is really and truly dead, or if they found her body, or whichever. There's a whole thing about that in this episode. Dan is to be found, and Surrey is technically reworking with Harry again, which is kind of an interesting thing. But also, Surrey and Rich are kind of having these very uncomfortable, awkward moments. So, with that said, yeah, we also have them getting very much closer and closer to, having some hard evidence about Blake. And so that starts to become, very interesting to eventually see how exactly they are going to turn Blake in. Because, still, they need to, go over, Blake's head and to get into, some real people that could go and turn Blake in. Because I guess, Blake could just be, protected by some Secret Service people. And so, reasonably, it's just okay, how can we get some real true hard evidence against Blake to like force him to go to prison forever and like have this kind of like tied up in a nice neat little bow. I'm assuming it's going to end up another way where probably Harry is going to end up having to kill Blake at the end of this, or Blake is going to end up dead by somebody, and then that somebody is going to have to get arrested forever. And I'm assuming that's probably Harry. Like that's maybe how they'll sadly end this show, which is Harry going to prison forever for murder because he forcibly had to, like, he did the right thing and took out Blake. I don't know. Like, plus also, they never cleared with us like what happened with the other bracelet. What happened to Isabella's bracelet? What happened to that? Who has that? Does Blake have that? Does where is other I want to know, because all of a sudden I just don't want to like come into an episode and just be like, haha, I bracelet. Because we have Madame Chung, who is telling Harry in this episode, like, hey, you need to go and find that other bracelet so like we can eventually take this one off for reasons in this episode. So like, let's get into it. Let's go into spoilers. Let's go into that 5 time territory that we always go into, especially if you've been like every single episode. I'm sure you've watched every single review, I'm sure, right? Yes, I have. Okay, great. Good, thanks. I appreciate it. But a lot of people will probably eventually like kind of trickle in on certain episodes, especially certain episodes where people are to die or like certain seasons are to start. It seems like that seems to be like when people come in. And so thank you for anybody coming on in at any part or sticking around. Thank you. So let's go into this. Let's go into that 5 time territory and let's get into spoiler time. Spoiler time. It's about that time to get to spoil. I don't know why I do it. I just continue. It's fun for me. Let's get into spoiler time. So, right around very beginning of episode, because like I always go back to something like, oh, I forgot about this, or I did. Blah, blah, blah. Plus, there's a lot to unpack in this episode. It's probably going to be a thing that I'm like, oh no, I forgot about this one scene that tied everything perfectly, and I feel like that's going to be this kind of review. So, in the very beginning of this, we have Harry that is to go after Blake and want to murder Blake because of Eve's death. So this is like right from the last episode. We have Suri, who is to look at this bridge that she almost died on, and she's like, what could have been? What could have been my death? Like, I have child, like, or something. What if I'm just like, I don't know. Anyways, like, Suri's like, man, I could have died. I could have died right here. I could have just been dead. And then I wouldn't have had to just been depressingly going through every episode like it's my last, basically. Anyways, so Harry is distraught about Blake murdering Eve, technically. And so Harry goes and like tries to like hurt Blake, but eventually Harry just runs off and is to eventually realize that the bracelet isn't quite working for him, isn't really hitting all the digits, if you know what I mean. So Harry goes off to Rich to kind of play cards at the casino, and he starts losing. And so Harry's just going to Rich and he's like, hey, give me more money. Like, I know I'll win. And Rich is like, how about you don't? But Harry just wants to continue to test if the bracelet is working. And so Suri eventually walks in and it's just like, hey, like thanks for saving my life, Harry. But yeah, so So like Harry and Rich are having this like awkward thing where like Rich is telling like Surrey, it's like, well, hey, I'm glad that you're okay. Like if anything, I heard about what happened, and like Surrey's like, I don't want to get into this right now. And like it just feels like Harry is like this third wheel in this episode where he's like, well, do you two want a moment alone? And like Surrey and Rich are just like, no, like we're like, because eventually, like Harry is on the boat with Rich, and Surrey like makes it on makes it to the boat, and like we have this again awkward moment where Rich is saying like, well, I had to lie to you to protect my brother, and it's like, yeah, but like you also like slept with this woman. You got all up in that business, and you're just like, oh well, yeah, baby, but like that's my brother though. Dude, you freaking like you got some of that, and then you're all of a sudden just like, oh wait a minute, but like that wasn't like girlfriend boyfriend love, that was just, that was just something we did one night. No, you should have come clean to Surrey just to see like what she would have actually told you. If ways were reversed, Rich would probably like, man, you know what? If I like would have had the chance, I probably would have taken it all back. And then Harry would have been arrested, and then like this show would have been a lot. Just credits are rolling all of a sudden because Harry is no longer in like show, so the show ends, or someone else gets the bracelet, or whatever the case. So, but yeah, so Harry is to eventually talk to Surrey, and like we have also like Gray that kind of like feels like like I don't like she has this like weird relationship with Blake in this episode where it kind of feels like she went on a date with Blake, and then like Blake stopped calling, and Blake stopped like giving a crap about Gray, and so like Gray is calling Blake and is like, hey, Blake, are we still on for Tuesday? Like, is it still gonna happen kind of thing? And so like Gray is kind of like that, where like she's all of a sudden just like, but like I want to be back with that Gray guy because like I thought he was MI5, and so Orwell is going on a computer to go and figure out who Dan Morrison really is, and so Gray tells Orwell, it's like, well, hey, don't look into previous police officer like database. Look into like ex-military or probably the last 5 years, and you'll probably find out like who he actually is. And so Orwell eventually does find out that Dan was previous military, and so it's like, oh, okay, all right, we figured out who he actually is. So also, what ends up happening is both Surrey and Harry are back together again, like back at it, like just throwing guns and having fun, if you know what I mean. Anyways, so Harry and Surrey go and try to thumb through Dan's apartment, and Harry is to just try to figure out like if there's any spot that maybe the CSI guys didn't thoroughly check, and Surrey is to just be like, you know what, like I'm feeling like you should have this like lunky hunch of a thing right now, and Harry's like, yeah, I don't think that's happening. Like I just don't think that's gonna work out. So, but Harry goes and like dips like in between the cracks of the couch, and he ends up finding some photo of a girl named Amy who evidently they had spent some, or like her and Dan had spent some time together at this one pool place that I guess one of these characters know about. So they head on out to this pool place to eventually ask Amy, who is this lifeguard of this pool place. And so they start asking her about Dan, and it kind of feels like she's like not exactly giving them any answer. She's kind of giving them a slip. But eventually, Amy like starts to get concerned about Dan, and so Amy goes and eventually finds where Dan is, and Harry and Surrey are to follow. So that eventually leads them to go and grab Dan, because what eventually happens is like Dan tries to like grab Amy and has a knife to her, and then eventually like goes into the back part of this like place, and all of a sudden we have Dan who like drops his backpack in front of this bus. Harry tackles him to avoid Dan getting run over, and so Harry is now like holding on to Dan and just like, you're not gonna get away, not this time. And so Dan is telling Harry, hey, just so you know, Eve still alive. And Harry's like, see what now? But Dan is like, but I want protection from Blake. Like, I'm sure there's going to be any random assassin or hitman or whatever that is just going to come out of the woodwork to come after me if I tell you any lick of anything, even what I'm telling you right now. Like, believe me. Like, I want protection. And then all of a sudden, Dan gets so much protection with a bullet into his head that we're like, aw. So, Harry, what happened to my voice there? Harry is to call Eve like 10 times. He's just like, baby, come back. Like, you can blame it all on me. I was wrong. Do you guys remember that Transformers song that was playing when Shia LaBeouf was trying to get Megan Fox in that movie? Baby, come back. You can blame it all on me. Yeah, that was a good song. That was, believe me. I love the old-fashioned music. It's good. So, anyways, Harry goes off to, like, he calls Eve, and, like, really, like, he does this a lot in this episode. We find, like, Eve pulls this, like, Nick Fury from, like, Captain America's Civil War move, where we just see Eve in some hospital bed in this, like weird looking, like, establishment. This, like, it looks like it's been, like, a place that has, like, been heavily just crappy looking in just some random place that they found somewhere. And so Eve is now hooked up to all these things, and she's trying to, like, rip them off. And Blake is like, don't do that. Don't do that whatsoever. Like, you need those things. Keep them all on you. Keep them all on. So we have Blake, who is trying to pull like a Terminator Genesis with Eve, and Blake is trying to manipulate Eve. I guess maybe using all kinds of drugs. I don't know, but like enough like manipulational drugs to get her to basically bend to his will. So Blake is to mention that the main reason he has gone on to do this, to go against Harry, go against these bracelet wielders, is because his mother was on the end of bad luck from this bracelet. From a bracelet wielder, or maybe that Blake's mother had like her bracelet changed to be like having bad luck, and his mother might have died from that. I don't know. You would probably think that Blake, like, that happened to probably his mother, and so maybe that's why Blake knows so much about this bracelet to be able to do this to Harry. So Blake is manipulating Eve, and man, is it working. Blake is just like, Eve, like, Harry didn't save you, he saved Surrey. Like, and all the work that you did for Harry, like, all for nothing now, because he is not going to go out of his way to save your life. Shouldn't you just feel awful about that, Eve? Shouldn't you just feel horrified that Harry is just not going to think of you first? Isn't that horrible? And Eve is like, yeah, I think that is horrible. Whatever you're hypnotizing me with, it's freaking working. I'm drinking the Kool-Aid. Blake, I'm drinking it. Believe me, I'm drinking it. Whatever drug she's on, I guess is just working. Because eventually, Eve turns on Harry by the end of this episode. We think that everything is copacetic. Or maybe Eve was just saying whatever Blake needed to hear. Like whispering sweet nothings into his ear. But no, like, Eve has now turned. So, where was I also going with this? Oh, like, now we have to get into the reason why Madame Chung is, like, consistently in this episode. Because if we don't have enough to talk about, there's also one spot where Gray was to go in the office, and I think Surrey was looking for Gray. And I guess, like, what ended up happening was Surrey ends up stealing away, I think, Gray's phone, because I guess Gray documents all of the conversations that I guess she had with Blake. So that kind of ties both Blake and Gray together perfectly in line. So, so let's get to the Rich stuff. So Rich decides to go down to meet this guy named Arthur, who is to have this these certain, I guess, ancient documents. They're to have maybe something incorporated with the bracelets, or maybe something quite tied to them one way or the other. Like there's some kind of ancient artifact that Rich wants to get from this guy. And it also relates to Babs, the woman that Rich was to have supposedly killed, but then we end up finding out that it was that that other guy instead, the one, like, security guard that eventually was to eventually almost try to kill Harry, and like, but that didn't all work out. Anyways, pushing on. So Rich is to eventually, like, go and thumb through these things, because Rich used Harry, like, hey, my brother is a detective, and I'm sure he doesn't want to come down here and find any things that, like, you probably stole from anybody or whatever, right, Arthur? You didn't steal anything from anybody, did you? You didn't do any underhand business anytime soon. And so Arthur's like, whoa, wait a minute. Like, I'll let you see the things that you want to see. But that all of a sudden just has two guys that are tied to Madame Chung. And they come down and grab Rich and haul him outside of all places. Because, yeah, if I'm going to go and kill somebody, I'm going to go outside and do it, because that feels like a lot of people can hear somebody screaming. There might be an eyewitness freaking everywhere, because when looking at it, Harry killing Isabel supposedly during this whole one spot here, like, there was a bizarre, like, camera from everywhere. Also, speaking of cameras everywhere, like, the whole Orwell and Surrey moment where all of a sudden, like, conveniently, like, there was to be a security camera on Orwell and Surrey conveniently to have the whole phone thing being found out, and to be called up to Gray to say, hey, like, somebody's getting a little bit of evidence upon you. And it also seems like, what, did they have, like, a recording of all that? Like, how good are these cameras that are just all over this world, I guess? And, like, like, were there satellites that they're listening to these people's conversations? Is Orwell, like, is he wired? Is he going to work against Surrey at the end of this? Why do I always have to talk as if I'm having a question mark at everything that I'm saying? I don't know. But let's go on. So, Rich is to almost get killed by these guys that are, I guess, tied to Madame Chung. And so Harry comes in, he's like, hey, yo, what's up? Like, so Harry, like, goes and, like, takes this trash can and, like, flings it and, like, catches it like he's Captain America. And so all of a sudden Harry just takes this trash can lid and just flings it. And he's like, oh, I guess that didn't work out. But then eventually, like, the air conditioning unit, like, falls on this one guy. And he's like, like, I guess bracelet, you know? Like, it kind of works in a roundabout way. So, because supposedly Blake is to tell Harry that his luck is running out, and that eventually the bracelet will turn evil upon Harry, and that eventually the bracelet will have bad luck. I'm like, well, here's the thing that Harry should probably do. He should probably go and find this thing called a, God, what, the paddles. They always call them the paddles. What they should do is they should shock Harry with those things so badly that eventually his heart, like flatlines for a little bit, and then they can have, like, an epinephrine shot, like, right, like, so, like, they could, like, paddle Harry, whatever it's called, like, the doctrine term of just, like, electrifying Harry, basically. And then after that, they can go and epinephrine frickin' Harry to just, like, Arr! And, like, they could take the bracelet off, and then, like, Harry is in the good. Like, he won't have the bracelet wielding over him, whether it turns evil, whether it turns black, whether it supposedly tries to kill him in this episode, which, that's what happens when eventually Harry goes to Madame Chung. So, these two guys in black take Harry to Madame Chung, and so Harry is wanting to find out about this bracelet, and so Madame Chung is just like, hey, yeah, like, your bracelet, it's going to turn black, and it's also going to give you bad luck, and it's also going to try to kill you, so, like, that sucks, right? And, like, Madame Chung is like, yeah, you probably should get the other bracelet pretty soon. So, like, if you don't, you're probably gonna die. So, hopefully you get that bracelet. You know what I'm saying, Harry? What? Like, now all the bracelet is gonna, like, turn black and give Harry bad luck? So, like, this bracelet that Harry has been having for almost 3.5 seasons now, all of a sudden, like, we're gonna need to exchange this bracelet like a thing of batteries? Like, wait, like, we've had such a connection with this one bracelet, and just swapping it out, like, just feels wrong to me. And it also feels like, shouldn't there be a way to just even this out? Maybe Harry can just find another lucky bracelet and put it on his other hand, and then, like, the two will just cancel one another out, and then Harry can just get a third bracelet. Because, man, these things are so easy to find. And then, like, Harry will get his luck back. And so Harry will never have to die, or will never have to whatever, because, like, he'll just have a crap ton of bracelets at his disposal. And, like, I think that's how the show should just be written off. That Harry just has, like, too much freaking luck. And, like, he has a ton of lucky bracelets, and they all just, like, maybe he'll have to, like, maybe it'll be, like, an infinity gauntlet, like, thing at the end of this, where, like, Harry is just gonna have all of a sudden this, like, arm full of, like, bracelets, and he's just gonna beat people with them. Maybe it'll be, like, the Hellboy, like, hand, where he just, like, beats people with his, like, hand of doom. That would be pretty sweet. I'm hoping for that to happen. So, uh, so I'm getting too bizarre into territory here. So let's rein ourselves back. But yeah, so we have two spots with Madame Chow, and basically, like, that's the real information that we get from like these visits. Uh, so other than that, it's just kind of like, hey, how's your day going, kind of thing with between Chung and Harry. So a lot of just kind of just like roundabout dialogue, this ba 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 ba, because Rich was trying to like help out Harry, but like it wasn't gonna go anywhere. Like I don't think that like maybe Rich is gonna eventually work with Madam Chung, but I doubt it. But anyways, so Harry is to eventually go on to eventually have Eve like call him. So like Surrey and Harry are eventually going to make their way to Eve. And so eventually we have like Eve who is kind of talking to Harry, and like Harry just feels like everything is all good and whatever, but Eve is like, "No, like I'm going to turn against you, Harry, cuz I'm bitter for whatever reason." Uh, Plus, also, like, Eve is starting to rationalize. It's like, well, hey, like, because kind of Blake still manipulated her about the whole Isabella thing. It's like, think about it before. Like, Isabella, who had bracelet wielding power, she turned on you. So, like, what do you, like, Harry did the exact same thing. And so, like, that's kind of going on into Eve's mind where she's basically, like, telling Harry, like, the next time you see me, I'm gunning for you, kind of thing. Like, that's the statement that Eve is kind of making. How, like, she kind of feels like a lover scorned, and how, like, what would have happened if Harry chose Eve instead of Surrey? Like, one, I wouldn't have liked that to happen, but I'm just kind of wondering, in alternate world, like, if Harry would have chosen Eve, would Surrey have turned on Harry? Would eventually Surrey just been like, you know what, like, I'm gonna go and, like, I'm gonna finally just arrest Harry and book him forever, and show will end a lot quicker. Or maybe Rich. Oh, Rich would have been just ticked off. I don't know. But yeah, so, like, Eve is declaring her vengeance against Harry and all of any of the bracelet wielders because, like, Eve just was not chosen. So really that's just the bulk of this episode. Like, really, there probably are also things that I probably just kind of skipped about a little bit, because meh. But with that said, yeah, like, that covers a bulk of this episode, but there's probably still little details that's going to bug me that I didn't say or whichever. Um, but yeah, it kind of feels like they're coming very much closer to uh, really just kind of arresting Blake. Oh, the Surrey moment. Let's get into the Surrey moment. So, uh, Harry and Surrey and Gray are all together in one spot. And so basically, Surrey is to tell Gray, you know what, I have all the evidence against you, like, to basically book you, Dano. So, you know what? Like, I'm going to tell you right now, I am going to be your boss, not the other way around. Because Gray was still kind of questioning whether Surrey should, like, it kind of seems like more and more, it seems like Surrey getting demoted doesn't seem good enough. So Gray was just kind of questioning, like, you know what, I don't know if you should be, like, doing this, Surrey. Like, I think maybe you've been, maybe your thoughts about Harry are kind of getting away, like, kind of, like, hindering you in this case. Like, maybe you being tied with Rich is also hindering. Like, we have Gray that's kind of doing, like, an emotional, like, questioning of Suri whether or not she can do this case or not. And like, so that comes full circle where Suri is like, I own you, woman. I own you, Gray. Freaking, like, when I speak, you go, hmm? And so Suri has established dominance, which is great. And so, uh, like, because Suri is just like, you're working for me now. Like, like, because, like, Gray was questioning Suri, so now, like, Suri's just like, I got this. Like, I'm freaking gonna, like, I'm gonna turn you in, Gray, because of the shenanigans that you were doing, because I do not trust you. And because Gray is still that, hey, Blake, why can't we hang out? You know? So, and we have also this moment where Suri was to see both Blake and Gray together, and Gray was questioning Blake, and like Gray was like, "Hey, like, what's going on, Blake? Like, like, what are we doing?" And Blake is like, "You know what? How about you go back and just do your job? Like, if anything, like." You just go and do your job like a good little detective, and I'll see you later. Like, where, like, it feels like Blake just freaking owns Gray, and that just feels just sad. And, like, Blake just, like, I don't know, like, there's this weird relationship going on with a lot of these people in this episode. And so you would have thought that Gray would have tried to turn Blake in, or just kind of like brought Blake in for questioning just because he can't trust him. But like, yeah, I guess not. So like, so yeah, like, so I'm trying to like figure out if I like didn't cover something in this episode, because there's a lot of loose ends in here. There's a lot of like transitional moments or whatever. But there's also just like parts where I can just go in and like, oh, here's this little sliver of something, to make sure that I've covered it. So, but yeah, like a very interesting episode, but very just all over the place. But it also feels like a lot of like filler, in all honesty, to where it's like, I guess something really is going to happen in the next episode, or there's like little trinkets of something that is going to make us concerned about this episode going into the next one. So, with that said, yeah, hopefully these episodes just get a little bit more like, there's gotta be some like real like juicy stuff going on in these next couple episodes. There really has, like, I'm hoping that there isn't just this whole slew of just like come on, like we should just be going into these last episodes and like feel like we don't have to bring down like the government and the world and whatever to take down one guy, to take down Blake. But there always has to be that escalation of things where it just becomes harder every season to be able to do their job. But anyways, but I'm gonna get out of here. I'm gonna do my job out of here. Goodbye, everybody. Goodbye, everybody.